The Terminator, a small little film that launched a franchise that went on for at least 35 years, getting 5 sequels, a TV series, comic books, video games, all from this movie that only cost about $6.5 million. In 2029, the human resistance is about to finally take down the robot uprising that happened back in 1997. In a last-ditch effort, the machines send back a Terminator, a robot with human skin played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, to kill Sarah Connor, played by Linda Hamilton. He wants to kill her since her son, John, was the leader of the resistance, but the humans also sent back a soldier named Kyle Reese, played by Michael Biehn, to protect her. So yeah, no use beating around the bush, this is a great movie, but it does have its flaws. But also, it's one of those movies where its flaws give it a bit of charm. For example, this might be one of the most 80s movies ever made, and I mean that from a very specific moment in the 80s, like 83 or 84. It could not exist in any other year. The way everyone talks, looks, the music, it all just screams early to mid 80s. But that's honestly one of the things I like most about it. I love the look of this movie. The lighting, the framing, the sort of gritty feel to everything. I want to make a movie that looks like this. And besides the look, the 80s feel from the way everyone acts adds something interesting about it, like Sarah's friend Ginger. I just look at her and I see someone who is totally entrenched in the culture of the time period. And since this is supposed to be a movie about being from the future going back, it kinda makes sense to make it as modern as possible. Speaking of the future, the stuff set there is cool too. Again, just the look of it. It may not seem as special after 5 sequels and dozens of movies trying to copy it, but it just looks like how I imagine a dystopian world would. But enough with the look. The story is pretty simple. It's a time travel movie about someone from the future trying to kill someone from the past. It's a basic plot, but it does it well, and while the characters aren't the most developed, the performances shine through. Sarah is just a down-on-her-luck woman with a shitty job, bad relationship, she owns an iguana, and then gets thrown into an intense situation. Not the most deep, but it works because of Hamilton, who not only can play scared and confused, but can be pretty badass. Plus she's smart, she figures out a lot of what's happening before Kyle even shows up. Kyle is probably my favorite character. I love his backstory, he feels like he genuinely has been thrown back to a time he never knew, and he can kick ass. He's also really smart, able to evade the police and figure all this stuff out in a very short amount of time. Plus I gotta admit, it's nice to have a positive representation of us Kyles. I mean, the only other ones I can really think of are Kyle from South Park, who's a Jewish stereotype, Kyle from Living Single, who's a misogynist prick, and also Kyle XY, which I never saw. And then of course there's the Terminator himself, who is genuinely horrifying. Arnold is great. He manages to pull off playing a cold killing machine, but physically he is just intimidating. Like, Kyle seems like he can handle himself in a fight, but even taking out the fact that this guy is a robot, he looks like he could squish your head. This is a horror movie. I know it's technically considered science fiction, but the way it's filmed, the way it's built up, it feels like a horror film. The Terminator keeps killing people with no remorse, and it's almost impossible to defeat. Even the score feels more like something you would hear out of a horror film than a science fiction action film, and I just love that little thumping whenever Arnold shows up. The action scenes are pretty good for a lower budget movie. It's mostly serious, but there are some good jokes in it, and the effects, well, some of them hold up. I think that can transition to the stuff that's starting to show its age. While some of the effects held up fine, some of them have not. And some aren't really bad, they just feel out of place. Like the lasers in the future scene or the lightning when the T-800 and Kyle are sent back. It looks like the lightning effects from Ghostbusters and Back to the Future, which works for those movies, because they're comedies. This is a serious film and they look like cartoons. Also, some of the editing is really not that great. I mean, most of the time it's fine, but sometimes it can be a little spastic, especially in the hand-to-hand combat scenes. Also, despite being rated R, there's not much blood in this, and it seems they purposely cut to not show the blood. Car chase is pretty cool though. I think that's where most of the budget went. I really like the smaller effects, like when Arnold is patching himself up. I mean, the prosthetic face is crap, but the arm and scooping out the eye are pretty cool. The ending is surprisingly pessimistic and optimistic at the same time. I know that sounds weird, but if you watch the movie, it basically says that we'll fuck up, but eventually will win. So yeah, The Terminator is a great film, even if its budget and the time it came out does keep it from being a masterpiece. I give it an 8.5 out of 10. It still amazes me that this little film managed to spawn a series that's been going on almost as long as Star Wars. And of course, Cameron would later direct one of the greatest sequels of all time. But before we get to that, we have to get to another one of the greatest sequels of all time, but this one is a sequel to a movie he didn't direct. So join me tomorrow for Aliens. See you then.